Hi, well, it's wonderful to be here. And as the saying goes, I'm Nicole Lazzaro, and I make things more fun as a game designer and researcher. And I'd like to share with you today a couple of very interesting things. In 2004, I discovered what we call the 4 keys to fun, which is how games create engagement. 2007, I created the first iPhone game to actually use the accelerometer along with Joe Hewitt. I used that model to do that. In 2012, we're launching Tilt World, which is a game to plant 1 million trees, and that's what I'm going to be talking to you today. How do we take this technology and make it into people technology that changes behaviors and thoughts and feelings? But before we start, I'd like to take you on a little journey, tell you a story about a trip I took to Egypt at the turn of this century. I found myself standing on top of a temple on a hot, dry day, looking out over the desert. And I was reaching down for my canteen for that last sip of water when I stopped and stood in amazement because there at my feet, someone had carved a game board. And I thought, wow, 2 people had stood where I stood and thought to pass their time with a game. What would they think about the games we played now? And then in the year 2020, what kind of games would we be playing then? It's then that I realized that all my training in cognitive psychology at Stanford hadn't prepared me for the types of engagement that were happening every day around me as I watched players play. It turns out that games do a couple things. They connect goals, their actions, motivations, and emotions. And if you want to make a game that changes the world, you need to connect these 4 things. But in order to do this, we really need to know the research. So let me go a little bit into what we did. So this is how we researched emotion and fun. And it turns out that there are 4 things that games do that create the best-selling, most engaging player experiences. They offer novelty, they offer challenge, they offer friendship, and they offer meaning. Now, if we're going to research fun and emotions in fun, well, how do we do this? Well, what we did was we actually watched players' faces. We used Paul Ekman's facial action coding, actually literally measuring 7 emotions on the face, others in the body, during favorite moments of play. How many of these slides, these images here, are of enjoyment? It turns out that only one of them is, the one on the far right. And that's not because he's smiling, but because he's contracting here, the orbicularis oculi. And that betrays, a true enjoyment. Now, we see in other games as well. This is Splinter Cell. He's shot a hole in the fish tank. Water's pouring onto the floor. Look what happens when the water stops. Clearly, there's a moment of enjoyment there, not part of the main game path. So lots of things are happening in these games. What we've done over the past 20 years, we've downloaded and watched people play thousands and thousands of experiences, and we've condensed it into this model we call the 4 keys. And so I'm going to tell you this formula for analyzing and thinking about new ways of play. So first of all, there's what we might think of as hard fun. That's the most obvious thing about games. It's this challenging aspect of games. It's the opportunity for mastery. And it goes from frustration to that feeling of the epic win. Next, there's easy fun, which is more about curiosity, wonder, and surprise, exploration and role play, throwing all your Sims into the pool, pulling out the ladder to see what happens. Then there's people fun, which is the opportunity for friendship, camaraderie, competition, cooperation. All of these mechanics create wonderful sets of emotions. And then lastly, there's serious fun, which is all about creating these dynamics that change the player and change the world. So excitement, the desire to acquire, relaxation, all of these things happen in serious fun. It's when you play Brain Age to get smarter, or Dance Dance Revolution to lose weight, or first-person shooter to blow off frustration at your boss. So it turns out that having 3 out of the 4 is an indicator of a best-selling game, and players prefer 3 out of the 4, even in a single play cycle. They'll wander through all 4. And so we thought that was really interesting. Now, what does this mean about environment? How does this connect to creating environment change and a game that could change the world? Well, it turns out everything, and here's the reason why. It turns out that in the neurosciences of the past 10 years, we've discovered that emotions are required to decide. You take two choices, and if you have damage to your emotional system, you can actually talk cognitively about the consequence of those choices, but be unable to make the choice itself. And so in a sense, your emotions are not there to guide you. And so when we are designing, whatever we're designing as interaction designers, we have to be sure that we're designing the emotional response as well, because that emotion is involved in the choice. In fact, according to Antonio Damasio, who wrote this wonderful book called Descartes' Error, You've made every decision in your life has been made on an emotional level first. And so the best of us as interaction designers will do this intuitively. The rest of us may start to take this on as a new sort of craft. Because game design, as I said, is this medium for the 21st century. And it turns out that interface design in games has often led other areas, from the pie menus on The Sims to gestures on the Wii. There's been a lot of experimentation happening in games. Now, when we go to thinking about the environment, how does this apply? How can we apply this? Well, it turns out that, how can we stop climate change or slow it down? It turns out that low-lying clouds, cool the Earth. They're involved in a lot of process to reflect sunlight. Well, how do we get low-lying clouds? Well, if we walk backwards, it turns out that trees make clouds. So trees create microscopic particles. They also transpire water vapor into the air. And so we can actually plant trees to increase low-lying clouds, which could then cool the Earth. According to our friends at WeForest, we'd need about 2 trillion trees to do this, so that's quite a few trees, and maybe beyond the capacities of one little iPhone game to do. But we're willing to give it a shot. Maybe we'll just do the first million. And so this is a little bit of how it might work. In order to get that many trees in the ground, what's going to happen? Well, people are going to have to plant them. And if people are going to plant them, that means they're going to have to change their behavior. So how can we use game design or emotion design as a tool to create this, to change people's emotional responses? And so if you think about it, what we can do is we can actually use emotion as a design tool, as a way of changing the way that people think, they feel, and they behave. And the best way I know to do this is, of course, with a game. So let's take a look about how this might work. Just a real early example, this is from my personal story, is back when I was a student at Stanford, a starving student at Stanford. I couldn't afford many luxuries, but I could on occasion buy like a 5-cent peanut butter cup. And when I studied, I put them on this clipboard, and it turns out that it actually changed the emotion profile of the task that I was doing. Because emotions do 5 wonderful things. They allow us to focus, they increase our memory, they allow us to decide, and they assist performance and learning. And so now I wouldn't say that just creating your own clipboard is going to make you a Rhodes Scholar, but it will, it could make me, at least it made me, study longer and harder. Flash forward to today, and this is how I file my receipts. By putting them in this box, increased my receipt turn-in, on-time ratio, it was up 90%. Just because I changed the emotion profile of the task that was normally, boring and dry. So then, with these experiences behind me, I did, at the very beginning of this project, think about how to change the emotion profile of climate change. How can we use game mechanics to change emotion? And it turns out that, we spend as a planet about 3 billion hours a week playing games. Why don't we take 2 or 4 of them and use those to plant a tree? And if we do the right kind of game, we can actually change people's oh, I don't want to be green, or that's so boring, that's too hard, that's kind of none of my friends are doing it. We could actually change the way people think to do something positive for the world. So I'm going to go through the 4 keys and show you how it works. So here's HardFun, which is the first key. It's all about challenge, clear goals, obstacles, and strategies. What we want is you want a game that has these things. If the game gets too hard too quickly, you're going to leave because the game is too frustrating. If it doesn't get hard enough, if it's challenging enough, then you're going to leave because you're bored, right? So it's these 2 things you keep in balance, what Csikszentmihalyi calls flow. And what we discovered is that in order to get the feeling of winning, like, yes, I just got the boss monster, I won the Grand Prix, you actually have to frustrate the players so much that they're about ready to hit that top of that cone, and they're about ready to throw the controller through the window. And if you do that, that's when the body feels really good. We call that experience fiero. It's Italian for that personal triumph over adversity. And not all games, do it, but when you do, it's a really great experience. And this is kind of why in basketball, for example, is one of my favorite games. In basketball, that's why the hoop is way up high and small, because you can't, that's why it's not this big and at waist level. It's because it has to be hard to accomplish. So in Tilt World, what we've got is this HardFun. We've got clear goals and strategy. This is Flip, the carbon-eating tadpole, and has to basically figure out how to get that bottle cap in the middle of the screen without touching any of the spiky, blighted balls. It looks like this. This is how Flip moves around and eats carbon out of the air. And we want to start really, really, really small. So flip is a tadpole the size of a raindrop, and those are carbon molecules that flip's eating. We wanted to get that experience of going from that small to being very big. So next what we did is we created novelty. So novelty creates controls. You can have novelty in controls, you can explore, you can create aspirational fantasies. So if you're interested in creating a bigger picture, this is what you can do. Is it more fun to learn neuroscience, for example, via like flashcards? Or is it more fun to learn neuroscience playing a pinball virtual scan of your own brain, something like that? I think it would be the latter. It's also fun in basketball just to dribble the ball or play your Harlem Globetrotter without any of the point, without keeping score. In a tilt world, what we've got is this novel perspective change. So just thinking about the environment a little differently, like turning from portrait to landscape, that's how you move the character flip. So you just by turning. And that novelty is engaging, creates a layer of engagement. So controls are a great way to introduce what we call easy fun. Now, we all know that winning is more fun with people involved. When your friends are involved, there's schadenfreude, there's camaraderie, there's competition, there's cooperation, there's nachas, there's amici, all kinds of really great emotions. More emotions in people fun than the other three combined. And when you play in the same room, more emotions than you play that same game in different rooms. Really fascinating what's going on in people fun. In fact, what's so strong is that you're really not designing the people, the screen in people fun. You're really designing what happens on the couch. Take a look at this.
Yeah.
So here they're playing Wii, on the Wii, they're playing a Rayman minigame. So it's fun to move together, right? It's fun to dance around a little bit.
Your arms are throwing me off. I'm sucking. Yeah, look at my buddies.
So, Fiero.
We got two.
So teasing. So we can actually use games to create social bonds. We can actually get games to bring people together. If you've ever had someone make you laugh so hard you roll on the floor, laughing, that's what happens in people fun. We also think about in Tilt World the caretaking aspects of feeding flip. That creates social emotions, as does creating collection and completion mechanics while you're collecting badges, as well as this is our world scoreboard. So all of the points that everybody in the system, we've got about 8 million points almost so far, gets put into the same pool. And so you're collaborating together to plant trees in Madagascar. Now, serious fun is the last we're going to cover, and that creates meaning, collection, repetition, and impact. These two items are really the same game, whether it's a carpet sweep and Bejeweled. And why is that? Well, because the goal is to collect all you can. They enhance progress. You aspire to acquire. All of these mechanics are what's involved in serious fun. It's the same thing that drives you to download apps for your iPhone, as well as collect badges on Foursquare. But it's not just the points. We're also talking in serious fun about themes. So in our game Tilt World, the environmental theme and saving the environment, saving the real environment, is a real strong motivator for people to play. And we can take a second dip through easy fun, or through serious fun here, by being able to collect different items. You can actually turn the crank and donate your coins to Madagascar. And once that meter fills to the top, we're going to plant up to 1 million trees with our friends at WeForest. So I just wanted to do 2 quick examples about, this is done, other examples of PlaySourcing. Adina Levin at Drive Less Challenge has done a Drive Less week where she awards prizes. 30,000 miles were drive more green, and 17,000 pounds of carbon was removed from the air. And then PlaySourcing Vermont Energy Investment Corporation, Nick Lang, used a game to have towns compete. And the winning town who saved the most energy got a free ice cream party for the whole town, sponsored by Ben & Jerry's. And it changed their attitudes. It was a great thing. Vermont is an antidote to paralysis, was one of the players' quotes there. So if you like to know more, you can download the free white papers and model here on this. But I also want you to take a moment and think about things that you'd want to do, whether it's the environment or whether you wanted to make the next great app or maybe a new word processing program or enterprise software. And think about your players or your users' emotional response. How can we how can we come together to create a new type of feeling, a new way of playing? And I don't know if I have time. I've gone a minute over, so I should wrap up. I have a video I could show otherwise. Okay, if no one's stopping me, then I'm going to show the video. Okay, great. So we're going to talk about PlaySourcing. And this is an idea of the inspiration that you can provide people just by doing one little thing, a couple little things. If you can pull that together and use the excitement of games, get those points and get those accumulating and give that feeling. So you can take that whole planet. We can take the whole planet, team together, and take the whole planet to the next level of play. So here we have the clear challenge. Wonderful. Whether it's through novelty, challenge, friendship, or meaning, or even on something that's even as small as an iPhone, the ultimate purpose of games really is to prepare us to impact the real world. Thank you very much.